Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. I'm really excited to be recording another video here focused on the 2022 NBA Draft. However, this one's a little bit different from some of the other videos that we've been covering the NBA Draft with. This one is a little bit more lighthearted and focuses here solely on my favorite players to watch in this year's draft. And that might be a little bit confusing. We're going to get into that in the video preview here. But if you have been enjoying the content here at Utility Sports, there's a few things I'm going to recommend. First of all, subscribing. If you're not, we would love to have you be a part of what we do here on Utility Sports. We got a lot of fun announcements coming up in the near future. I would also love for you guys to hit the like button on today's video. And then after today's video, check out our channel. Spend a little bit of time going through some of our most recent videos. If there's some you haven't watched in there, I highly recommend. We try our best to bring the highest quality content that we can for every single video. And now let's jump into the actual video preview here like I talked about. This is not a big board. This is not my big board. So I don't want it to seem like this is my favorite players in terms of how good they're going to be. This is not a ranking at all. This is simply my favorite players to watch from an enjoyment perspective. Guys I like, guys that fit the kind of mold that I enjoy watching. As someone who, when I played back in my day, I like to pass the basketball. I like to do a lot of different things on the floor. And I, kind of did a bunch of different things. Back when I played in high school, I led my team in blocks. I was tied for most steals. I had I think, third most points on my team. I also led the team in assists, and then I was third in rebounds. So I kind of did a lot. Now, my team wasn't super good. Not going to lie about that. But, that stuff goes on and on. But for me, I enjoyed players who played similarly to me and also some who played completely different than I did. And then also, I want you to comment your own favorite prospects in this year's NBA draft. I would love to hear from you who you really enjoy watching. Maybe give me a list of some of your favorites or just your top guy, either or. I'm going to be super happy going through reading all the comments like I do for every single video. So now let's jump into my first player I want to talk about here, and it's Jamal Sharp. And you can tell from the graphic here on the screen, look at how big this kid is. He's absolutely massive. And at about 7'5", you would think, okay, this is going to be like a Boban Marjanovic where he just kind of sits in the paint. And to a certain extent, yes, he did that for Western Kentucky, but he's actually a little bit more fluid and mobile than you would think. Not that he's a great fluid mobile player, but he's fun to watch. When you look at him, watch his film, when you watch him play live games, he's definitely notable. He came off the bench for Western Kentucky, but he played a seriously dominant role for them in limited minutes, partially due to his lack of stamina. But nonetheless, I think he's just really enjoyable to watch. It's not very often you have a guy who's in the middle of being 7 feet and 8 feet tall. Not very often you have a guy who's standing about 7'5" with shoes on. It's crazy with how lengthy and tall he is. He's got an extremely long wingspan. And honestly, when he's on the television, you just can't take your eyes off of him. That's how fun of a player he is. Again, this is a lighthearted video. Not saying that Jamal Sharp is anywhere near the top of my big board. Quite frankly, he's not. But I do really enjoy watching this kid play. And then going into number 2 here, I'm looking at Carlos Allison from Real Madrid, or probably as he would pronounce it, Carlos Allison. For those who do not know, I actually speak Spanish. And Carlos Allison's from Real Madrid. He was born in Zaragoza, And for Allison, I think he's a fun player to watch because he plays as a playmaker. I think the common comparison for him is going to be Ricky Rubio. A lot of people will compare him to Ricky Rubio, both of them being Spanish-born players and both of them being bigger guards who are playmake type oriented first. Again, he's about 6'4", 6'5", kind of fits that physical profile of Ricky Rubio. And again, the Spanish descent, the playmaking capabilities. He's fun to watch. He's fun to have on the television because he's going to go out and make a bunch of nice passes. He's going to play like a highlight reel in a lot of different ways. Now, I don't think, again, he's not a great player. He's not going to be someone who dominates the NBA at any point, but he's just an enjoyable player to watch for me because I really like passing guards. For example, one player that when I was growing up was my favorite player to watch in the league for a little bit of time was Rajon Rondo. His ability to manipulate the game, put the ball right in the pocket. Of course, some of his flashy plays as well kind of emulated themselves into my game a little bit. My game not quite near the level of Rajon Rondo's, obviously, but players like that tend to have kind of won my heart over in terms of the enjoyment perspective. And of course, enjoyment doesn't actually really impact my big board. when I'm going through my big board, I'm looking at, you know, the actual fundamentals and how good this player is going to be, and how realistic it is that he, you know, has a good role in the NBA and that kind of stuff. Again, this is just enjoyment perspective. For me, Carlos Allison probably not going to be someone who takes over the league or really becomes a starting point guard even. But I do think he's very enjoyable, and I'm hoping he has a nice career in the NBA. Then moving on to Trayvon Williams here out of Purdue. And with Trayvon Williams, again, this is the playmaking perspective that I love to watch so much, specifically from the big man spot. It's not very often you get to see a big man who can throw one-handed passes that are lasers or darts coming out of his hand right on the money to outside shooters or cutters. And Trayvon Williams really does think the game like a guard. Now, he's bigger, he's heavy, he can rebound the basketball, he likes to bruise down low, and he's got a phenomenal right baby hook. All things that I love about his game from the draft evaluation perspective. But what I really enjoy watching about him, again, is that playmaking out of the post. His ability in the open floor as a big. You just don't really get that. And I think a lot of us who've played at any level of basketball kind of have the experience of, okay, the guards are the ones who think the game a little bit more, and the bigs tend to maybe lag behind a little bit. Obviously not as much at the NBA level, but in our own experiences, right? And Trayvon Williams here is kind of the counterpoint to that, where he's a big who thinks the game really well on both ends of the floor. I think he's a phenomenally smart player, and I actually do think he's going to have a nice long career in the NBA. I think he's going to find a nice role for himself, probably as a second round pick. And he's not the only Purdue player on here. I'll give that a little spoiler away. You guys are going to maybe come away from this video thinking I'm a Boilermakers fan. I'm not, but Trayvon Williams is just someone who's really enjoyable to watch for me, and I think he's going to be a fun player in the NBA, depending on which team he lands on. Then we move on here to Umar Zhang, and you guys can probably see a trend here. Another positionless type playmaker who he can play the point guard position, might play some small forward as well in his career. And when you look at what Umar Zhang is and what he's been able to do for the New Zealand Breakers, again, with his size, his ability to get to the rim, he's also comfortable taking step back threes. Now, he's not making them at a high clip yet, but I think maybe there's a little bit of a pathway for him to get to that. But again, for this video, it's just more loose, lighthearted, and fun. And Umar Zhang is the type of player I enjoy watching because he's competitive defensively, and likes to have the ball in his hands, gets downhill, drives and kicks. And I think that's really at the heart of basketball, the ability to get to the rim and then kick it out to shooters. You're probably noticing that I tend to enjoy players who think the game. People who are smarter than their opponents, who can make the right reads. Those players tend to have a lasting impact on me from an enjoyment perspective. And I do really like Umar Zhang as well in that category. And I think there's a lot of upside to him as well here. He might go in the lottery. He very well could go top 10 even. I know a lot of people look at Dyson Daniels as a potential top 10 pick. I think Umar Zhang should be considered right there with him in terms of, you know, the physicals, the defensive capabilities. And I think Zhang's a better offensive player as we currently speak. Maybe if Dyson Daniels can really improve that three-point shot. But for me, Zhang, definitely a player who stands out to me. And I also do have a slight preference to international players, not in my actual draft evaluation, in my draft big boards or anything like that. But I do have one in terms of enjoyment because I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. So I grew up watching Dirk Nowitzki. Then I've had Maxi Kleber on my roster, Luka Doncic. You know, I just really fallen in love with the international route. I loved Giannis Antetokounmpo coming out. I know it's going to sound like something that, okay, yeah, sure you did. I really actually did. My co-creator, I told him back when Giannis was a rookie, averaging about 7 points a game, that I would give up multiple first-round picks for him, which at the time I'm sure sounded crazy. And to be honest with you, I didn't see this level of Giannis. I just didn't. But I thought, wow, he's going to be a fun, nice wing who can do a bunch of stuff, can play make a little bit, can have the ball in his hands, run in transition. And he's just a freak athlete with great length. And I really loved Giannis coming out just because of those factors, even without expecting him to become a multi-time MVP and someone who's going to win the finals with the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, those are the things that ended up happening. I'm really happy for him, but I did look at him as like an all-star level player. And, you know, I was even low on him, which is funny. But Umar Zhang, probably not going to be a two-time MVP or anything like that, or a defensive player of the year. But I do think he's going to be a nice, fun, young player in the league. Then we go on to Jaylen Duran. And this is the type of player I tend to usually not like. But I think that I'm coming around on players like Jaylen Duran a little bit more. And the playmaking feel is there a bit. I think he's still got to develop this. But I I really am starting to like these switchable bigs who can go out in space a little bit more. And honestly, someone who's as passionate about the game as Jaylen Duran is. I know a lot of my comments say Jaylen Duran's not the most skilled player, and I understand what they're saying, or what they're trying to say at least, is that he doesn't shoot the basketball, doesn't have a reliable back to the basket game. And yes, those things are true. But I think he's going to be a really good screen and roll guy, which is at the heart again of basketball right now in the NBA. And I think defensively, he's going to be really good in the screen and roll game on the defensive end because of his ability to switch. And I really do like that about him. Another thing I love, again, is just that passion. Look at the picture here. I chose this one intentionally for the graphic because he is so amped up. When he makes big plays, he lets everyone know about it in a way that isn't, derogatory or demeaning, but just shows he's having a great time out there. And I think from an entertainment perspective, I want my players that I like to watch to really care about the game and to be super locked in, dialed in, and show some of that emotion, some of that reaction when they make a big play or when something goes wrong. I love that. Now, I do also love Kawhi Leonard because his is almost too funny when he doesn't show the emotion or reaction, even with the big moments, big shots, and everything that's Kawhi Leonard's famous for with that. But Jaylen Duran here, I do like the energy, the effort, the emotion, and I also really like his ability to finish around the rim as a big man. I mean, he's just so strong, and I honestly think, despite being not quite a 7-footer, I think he's one of the most dominant players from this class when it's all said and done. Then we go on to Benedict Matherin out of Arizona, and I've been really high on this kid all year long. Again, this enjoyment perspective does not impact my big board at all. It really does not. I love watching Benedict Matherin. I will watch him a ton in the NBA, just like I do with every single team on NBA League Pass, because I am addicted to basketball. I really just am. But Benedict Matherin here for me, the reason why I really enjoy watching him is the blend of athleticism with pure power and his ability to make big shots. And he's a total gamer. He's the type of guy that's going to go out there and he'll pull up from 25 feet with a hand in his face, get huge elevation on his jump shot. And then in transition, he'll casually go with a Euro step behind the back and jam it on somebody. And the fact that he has that type of versatility and variety is just really enjoyable to me. I love the wings who are kind of freak athletes, but under the radar, and also can knock down the 3-ball. And for me with Benedict Matherin, there's just something about him. I just really like him. I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it, but some of these players have that charisma, that charismatic nature where you're looking at a guy and you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy watching Benedict Matherin. And the more and more I watch him, the more film I study, the more Arizona games I caught this year, which is actually a ton. I watched a lot of Arizona this year, probably more than any other college team, to be honest. I really enjoyed Benedict Matherin's game, and I think him and Dalen Terry, I did want to include Dalen Terry on here. I didn't. Again, there's going to be some guys that I omit because there's so many different players that I would love to talk about here in this video. But again, I don't want the video to be 45 minutes long talking about my favorite players in this year's draft. I wanted to keep it kind of a little bit more casual again, like I've been saying. But I think Benedict Matherin, a player who I really enjoy watching. He is top 10 in my big board, but again, this is not impacting my big board in any way. And then the final player here I want to talk about, Jaden Ivey, and this should be no surprise to anyone. Again, doesn't impact my big board, but I think the way that I talk about him, you can tell how excited I am about this kid. Not just because of where he is on my big board, but the way he plays the game. Another example here of a gamer, and another example of a player who impacts the game in a multitude of ways. He is such a phenomenal athlete that I think he's going to leave a lasting impact, not only on the team that drafts him, but on the sport, on the game of basketball. I really think that Jaden Ivey could become that type of player because of the freak dynamic athleticism that he has. I think he's going to become quickly one of the most marketable guards in the league because he's got that big game flair mentality to him where he's going to stare into a camera, flex his muscles a little bit after a big play, and then there's other moments where he just skies defensively. And I've always liked guards who can get up and block shots and impact the game defensively. Even if he's not a great defensive player in reality, he's a defensive playmaker, and that's fun to watch. You put that on the television, you're looking at a guy jumping a passing lane with a huge 1-on-0 transition dunk, or a guard swatting a shot off the backboard. Like, think back to how fun John Wall was to watch. Even if you didn't like the Wizards, or you didn't even necessarily like John Wall, when he was on TV or when you were at a game live for the Washington Wizards, your eyes were on John Wall because he was so fun to watch. And I think Jaden Ivey's going to have a lot of those same characteristics. I know the comparison for Jaden Ivey's John Morant. I am buying into that a bit as well. But I think, maybe a John Wall type. I don't know if he play makes quite as well as either Morant or John Wall. But I think, as a scorer, he's going to be really good. He loves to take deep threes as well, which is always fun and entertaining to watch a guard shooting 25 to 30 footers. And for me, Jaden Ivey, probably my favorite player in this year's class. He's also my number one player on my big board. So maybe not the best example of saying that my favorites don't impact my big board. They really don't, though. Most of these players I do not think will be better than a guy like Chet Holmgren or Jabari Smith, who, yes, I like watching them. Yes, this is the thing too. I enjoy watching all of these kids. I really do. So it's hard to make a just favorites video. But these are the players that really exceed. Like guys I'm really looking forward to actually catching a ton of games, guys who maybe I'd consider getting their jerseys, that kind of situation. Not that I'm going to for any of these players necessarily, but I would at least consider it. And I'm just excited to see where these players go specifically. And I think, for an entertainment value standpoint, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. There's quite a few players in this class that I think are very enjoyable for sure. Thank you so much for watching. Comment Utility Sports Twitter in the comment section, because I think right now is a great opportunity to tell you guys to go give us a follow on Twitter. If you're still watching at this point of the video, don't forget to comment Utility Sports Twitter. It lets me know that you made it to the end of the video. And also go give us a follow there. That would be greatly appreciated. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new, and also leave a like on today's video for all the hard work we've been putting in on the channel. There's been a ton of days with daily uploads. And then even some days with double uploads, which I hope you are enjoying. Again, a lot of work goes in. I'm working about 60 hours a week off of camera. And then on top of that, probably close to 80 to 90 hours a week, honestly, when it comes to not only recording the actual videos, which takes some time, but you have to put together the graphics, make the thumbnails, and then actually edit and post. There's a lot of time that goes into all of this. So I hope you are enjoying. If you are, hit that like button, subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.